Okay, good evening. My name is Allison Brenelson, and I am the superintendent for the Mukilteo School District. I want to start off by thanking you for being here tonight. We're here to talk about a very important topic, gun safety. And this is the first of a series we're going to have for parents and community members around the topic of safety. Actually, we had the same information night 2 weeks ago at Harbor Point, so this is a repeat of that session. So for the first part of our presentation, we are going to hear from Officer Myron Travis, who works in crime prevention for the Mukilteo Police Department. He'll come up in a minute. And then we have Dee Reynolds, who is the domestic violence coordinator for the Mukilteo Police Department. So they will be sharing the bulk of the information tonight. And then we will hear a little bit from our Moms Demand Action Group. And if there's time at the end, we'll do some reflection. So before I turn it over to Officer Travis, I would like to introduce a few key people. So Diane Bradford is our communications person, and she's the one that obviously communicated this night. We have Cindy Steigerwald, who is our Director of Transportation and Safety. And then we have Tim Reeves over here, who is our Manager of Safety and Security. So it was the four of us that planned this night, and actually Cindy and Tim did a nice job of taking the lead in organizing this. So I just wanted to make sure they were recognized. And finally, we have Judy Schwab, who is our Vice President of our school board, always very supportive, always visible, and we appreciate that. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Officer Travis. Let's give him a round of applause.
Thank you. It is certainly a pleasure to be here, and thank you for coming out and taking time out to at least be exposed to the information that may help prevent an accidental discharge of a weapon or a negligent discharge of a weapon. And we'll talk about those dynamics on how weapons are discharged in a bit, but the reason why gun safety is so important is because guns are prevalent almost in every direction we look and turn. Toys in toy stores, on television and in movies. There's always some type of gun activity in too many places where we can look and be exposed, especially for our children. So we need to be educated on gun safety because not only with that exposure, guns are present in homes. So we're going to talk a little bit about gun safety. And why is that important? Because out of 857 million civilian arms in the world, the United States makes up 5% of the world's population. Okay, in the United States we have roughly 330 million people. In the world we have 7.7 billion, depending on what database you look at. So we make up 5% of the world's population. 857 million civilian weapons are stockpiled in the world. And 393 million of those weapons are right here in the United States. So 46% of the world's weapons, civilian-grade weapons, are here in the United States. What does that look like? Well, as you can see, many households have more than one weapon or a civilian weapon. And I'm not debating the Second Amendment. We have a right to it, but we have to be responsible and be safe if we're going to possess a firearm. So not only do we have homes where there may be one particular weapon, but we have many homes where there's long guns or rifles, handguns. So we have to be conscious of how we're going to store and possess those weapons. Why? This is why. Not primarily why, but we have too many children who will have the curiosity to either investigate, handle, find, explore firearms. And just like a birthday gift, no matter how hard or how much you put into trying to hide it, children will find it, okay? So we have to understand how important it is to make sure that if we're going to possess a firearm, if we're going to have a firearm in our home, we should do so responsibly and safely. So in 2013, there was 505 accidental deaths. Now, I challenge these types of this interpretation, accidental, because you have reasons why these things occur, but accidental can mean something totally different than what it may mean to you based on interpretation. So let's look at it. 3 types of firearm discharges: accidental discharge, negligent discharge, or an intentional discharge. So accidental discharge may be involved with a weapon that you may drop, and the safety may become disengaged, and it'll accidentally discharge, right? That to me is an accidental discharge. If a person handles a weapon and their finger is on that trigger and something happens, like they're walking or running, trip and fall, that's a negligence. Because there's rules to possession and handling a firearm. One of being, keep your finger off the trigger, right? Keep your finger off the trigger unless you're ready to discharge that weapon intentionally, which is our third type of firearm discharge. Intentional discharge is when you actually intentionally have your finger on the trigger, you're aiming it at something you want to shoot, and you intentionally discharge that weapon to hit that target. Now, it could be for sport, target practice, hunting, whatever, but these are the 3 types of firearm discharges. So I just wanted to pass that information and educate you a little bit about when we hear accidental, to me that means it was a mechanical malfunction based on some unintentional or less than negligent act. So if your finger's on the trigger and it should not be, then that's the first tier to me of being negligent, okay? So when we talk about weapons, why? Safety is the most important. 61% of firearms stored in the United States is stored in a manner that's less than safe. 39% of firearms are stored in a manner that's safe, locked, secure, and that's concerning if most of the weapons, or 46%? 46% of the weapons in the world are right here in the United States. So we have to really be diligent and really work on making sure that we possess these weapons and we can store them safely for the sake of others, children who may be in the household. Okay? How do we do that? There's different mechanisms that we can use to secure a weapon. One of the, if you look at the top left, that would be your basic cable gun. You run the cable through the chamber, through the magazine well on a semi-automatic weapon, rendering it inoperable. With the cable going through the magazine well, you can insert a magazine, which means you cannot load it. The cable is going through the chamber, which means the round cannot be chambered into the chambering mechanism, into the barrel, to render the weapon useful and ready and prepared for discharge. We can have a trigger lock, which is in the center with the key, so you can't even insert a finger into the trigger. Long guns can be used, cable can be used on long guns as well, through the chamber. That's one of the most important aspects of making sure your weapon is secure, to make sure that it cannot be chambered. A round cannot insert into the chamber or into the barrel to be prepared for discharge. And the cable goes through the magazine well to prevent it from being loaded, okay? So these are ways that you can render a firearm safe and inoperable. How do we store it? Not only should we render it safe and inoperable, but stored, inaccessible, right? So we have different types of storage containers or storage safes, gun safes. Top left, we have the storage box, which is a metal container. It can be a key lock, it can be a combination lock. There's different variations of that. We have biometrics. If you look at the top right, biometric locks, where actually your fingerprint or thumbprint is used as a locking and unlocking mechanism for the safe. Long guns, not underneath the sofa or not underneath the bed, in a gun safe that houses and is designed for a long gun. Because again, you want them to be not only safe, but inaccessible. Okay, because even in a storage facility or a storage container or a storage safe or a storage box, should they still be unloaded? Absolutely. Because you want these layers, these different layers of security when we come to gun safety. Not only do you want them unloaded, you want them locked, and you want them secured and inaccessible. Now, I put this slide in here because I get a lot of questions about if I have children at home, should I talk to my children about gun safety? Well, I try not to be inside of homes and help parent because children mature at different levels, at different rates, but it is responsible, and many safe gun advocates and knowledge and information tells us that you should have that candid conversation with the child to remove the curiosity element, to let them know that there's a weapon in the house, they're dangerous, and you are not to touch it, and there's rules that go along with that. When we talk about gun safety with children, you know, stop, don't touch it, tell an adult. To create this mindset and to create this learning aspect of gun safety, that they are not to touch it and that they're dangerous, not fun and entertainment. I've had information come to me that, well, I want to talk to them, but I also want to take them shooting, meaning the children. Well, I caution parents all the time to be leery about educating about gun safety versus entertaining children with weapons. Because if you take them shooting to expose them to it, and you don't know what that mental capacity is going to do as far as what's going to energize them, right? What's going to arouse their curiosity. If you try to show them how dangerous a weapon is by taking them shooting, and that's a parental choice, it may have some adverse effects, right? They may become intrigued with it. So in this gun safety mindset that I have, and this is just advice because I'm not trying to tell anyone how to parent, if you have a weapon in the home, let them know it's there, but also let them know how dangerous they are. And try not to confuse and conflate education and safety with fun and entertainment, okay? Because children, you know, mature at different levels, so you have to parent on what's going to be best in your household, what's going to be best for your child's maturity level, and what's going to work for you as far as what you think that they can handle maturity-wise. So one of the things, if you have a weapon, treat every weapon as if it were loaded. Never point the weapon at anything you do not intend to shoot. Keep your finger straight and off the trigger until you're ready to fire. Keep the weapon on safe until you intend to fire. Be certain of your target, your line of fire, and what lies beyond your target. These are important rules. Even as a police officer, we go through these rules as we qualify twice a year to be reminded that there's a responsibility to having a weapon. There's liability associated with discharging a weapon, because whether it's unintentional, whether it's negligent or intentional, wherever that bullet goes, you're responsible or can be civilly liable for anything that happens. Okay? I mean, that's important to know, because you can't say, well, something bad happened, some property damage, and I didn't mean to do it. You're responsible, just as law enforcement officers. You know, we are responsible anytime there's a discharge. It's a great responsibility to have. So, if you're a gun owner, you have to own it, respect it, be safe, and understand the ramifications, understand the responsibilities, and know that there's an importance between keeping a gun unloaded, keeping ammunition separated, and keeping the weapon stored, secured, and inaccessible. Those are the key elements to having a safe weapon in your home. And if you have any questions, I'm here to answer those. But again, if you own it, respect it, and certainly secure it. Thank you. And if anyone's interested, we do have available for you for free gun locks and some safe storage information, some gun safety information that's available for you to share with children. We have a pledge of safety pledge that you can have your children sign and put it in their room to remind them if you have a weapon in the home, or even if they were to come in contact with a weapon at a friend's house or something like that. They can pledge to being safe when it comes to weapons. And also, I caution parents to just know who your children are associating with. If your children are going to a friend's house, contact that parent. See if there's weapons in that house. See if they're secured and how they're secured. So we need to get into making sure that not only our home is safe, but wherever our children go and visit is safe there as well, especially when it comes to firearms. Thank you.
Thank you, Officer Travis. We really appreciate that information. Dee, as I said, this is Dee Reynolds. She's the Domestic Violence Coordinator for the Mukilteo Police Department. And she is pulling up her PowerPoint, but she's going to be talking about what is an ERPO, and she'll explain that, and when and how to obtain one. So let's give Dee a round of applause.
Thank you for having me tonight. My name is Dee Reynolds. I am the Domestic Violence Coordinator with the Mukilteo Police Department. It is my role to contact every victim of domestic violence who reports any kind of crime within the Mukilteo jurisdiction. And my goal is always to connect them with resources within our community, help walk them through the criminal justice process. And in doing so, I spend an awful lot of time at the courthouse trying to help them get protection orders. So I'm excited to talk to you guys this evening about extreme risk protection orders. So what is an extreme risk protection order? It is a civil court order allowing family and household members, as well as law enforcement agencies, to petition the court to temporarily remove firearms from a person who possesses an imminent risk of harm to themselves or others. Very simple. Can do an awful lot, so let's talk about that. ERPOs prohibit the respondent, so that would be the person we are trying to remove the weapons from accessing, receiving, purchasing, possessing, or having any kind of control of firearms for up to 1 year. These ERPOs can prohibit the respondent from obtaining or maintaining a concealed weapons permit as well, which I think is really important, and that's for up to a year. The respondent is immediately to surrender all of their firearms and any concealed weapon permits that they currently own. The ERPO is also entered into our state and federal databases, and so this is really wonderful. So if for any reason the respondent happens to be contacted by law enforcement, whether that be within our state or within another state, the information should be pulled up by that officer to show that that person is not eligible to be in possession of some kind of weapon or a concealed weapons permit. So even if they try to go out of state, they should not be allowed to be able to get one. These ERPOs also allow for the removal of firearms without having to seek any kind of an arrest or a civil commitment. There's a few things ERPOs do not do. Okay, so they cannot prohibit contact between parties. That's something that a more traditional style protection order handles. They cannot prohibit or exclude the respondent from being within a certain distance of a certain person or a location. That's again more of a traditional. And they cannot compel the respondent to any type of treatment. And I think that's really important that we're aware of. That's something it does not do. There's a lot of other orders that do handle that. So some of these are orders I handle an awful lot. So domestic violence protection orders is probably the top one I deal with. Anti-harassment orders, stalking protection orders, sexual assault protection orders, restraining orders, which you will find in family court during divorce and custody battles. Criminal no-contact orders, you will see those are issued, they're requested by the prosecutor during some kind of criminal act. And then a vulnerable adult protection order is also another order that prohibits contact. The difference for that one is we can't get a weapons surrender. For all those other types of orders, we can prohibit contact as well as request weapons are surrendered, provided we have the nexus to do so. So I really love this slide because it's a very clear picture here. Our traditional protection orders prohibit contact. Extreme risk protection orders only prohibit firearm possession. So RCW, this is the law that the ERPO is filed under. So this is really great to see what the whole point of this legislation was. So the ERPO laws are designed to provide a legal tool to intervene when there are warning signs that an individual is experiencing a temporary crisis, poses a risk of harm to self or others, and possesses or has access to a gun. That is it. It is a tool. just like all our other protection orders. Studies have shown that individuals who engage in dangerous behaviors are significantly more likely to commit violence towards themselves or others in the very near future. And individuals who pose a danger to themselves or others often exhibit warning signs, and this is wonderful because if we have the education to know what some of these warning signs may be, it really provides us a great opportunity to intervene on their behalf. So who can file for an IRPO? Law enforcement agencies and family and household members. So I think law enforcement agencies is kind of self-explanatory, but let's talk about family and household members. So when we're talking about family and household members, we're talking some of the obvious things that would come to mind. So marital partners, domestic partners, people who have children in common. Doesn't matter if you were married or not, doesn't matter if you live together or not, that part is irrelevant. If you have a child in common, you can file for an IRPO. Dating partners absolutely can file. Relatives, blood or marriage, biological or legal parent-child relationships. What I thought was great with these, that'll include step-parents, stepchildren, grandparents, grandchildren, and considering we're an age of very blended families, I'm glad that that was inclusive. Adoptive relatives, legal guardians, and I think the one that many people don't consider is roommates within current or within a year. I think that's important when you start thinking about kids who are going off to college. College roommates count. I would hope there wouldn't be a firearm on college campus, but if not, this could be done. So the steps for an IRPO, you know, when we start talking about going into court, a lot of people are overwhelmed by the process, and so I'm trying to break it down, and then we'll go into more depth on some of these points. So you obtain the paperwork that you need, you complete these forms, you will file that paperwork with the clerk's office, and you will attend ex parte hearing, and I'll go more into that in a minute. And then if you are awarded the order on a temporary basis, it has to be served by law enforcement, because at the time of service, is when the guns will be seized. So they are removed, and then you will go back for a full hearing, which is where you hope to obtain your 1 year, and then you will revisit any outstanding firearms in case any more have been found, and then we will serve the full IRPO, and then we will monitor for a year. So let's talk about some of these points in depth. Filing your petition. This is the biggest, most important aspect we'll do. So we will obtain our documents. There's a few places you can get them from. You can get them from online, so you can go to protectionorder.org, and you can download them there. You can download them from our Washington court systems, their website, so courts.wa.gov in the Forms Bank, and you would download it under the IRPOs. You can also get them from any courthouse. All courthouses will have the documents. If you want, you can go contact the clerk of the court, and they will happily provide them to you. So when you go to file, technically, you can file in any of our courts. Absolutely. What will happen, though, is when you go for your full-blown hearing, it will be transferred to Superior Court. So for ease, if you'd like to file there, you may, although you can file whatever courthouse is most convenient to you. The biggest caveat is that you have to file it in the county that either you as the petitioner reside in or that the respondent resides in. It's whichever one you guys want to work with. All protection orders work in pretty much a two-part process. So once you file your paperwork, it's provided over to the clerk. The judge immediately will go and begin reading through that petition. Based on strictly what that judge reads in your paperwork, they will make an immediate decision whether to grant you your IRPO or not, without hearing what the respondent has to say. If he grants it, it's granted for 2 weeks. We will serve it. Law enforcement will seize the weapons and any kind of concealed weapons permit licensing they may have. And then you are given a new court date for 2 weeks from that. At that point, the respondent gets the opportunity to have his day in court to speak his or her piece on the matter. So you will face them in court. And mind you, when we are serving them with the documents, they get every piece of paper you file, every piece of evidence, every statement. Be aware that all that information comes out, and that usually causes a lot of feelings. People are very concerned about what they're saying about others, so please know it's going to happen, and there is no way we can prevent it. So once it is served, we go back for the one-year-long hearing. At that point, the judge will listen to both sides, questions will be answered, witnesses may or may not have an opportunity to speak, and the judge will rule at that point whether to grant the ERPO for a 1-year length of time or not. If they grant it, and we are finding that there is more guns, we will seize more guns. If not, we just move on. And the department that actually serves the ERPO will be in charge of storing the weapons until the order is expired. So very important things you need to include in your petition. Your goal is to paint a very clear picture for the judge to convince him that there is a very real and imminent threat here. And so you really want to make sure that we're documenting what kind of guns does this person have access to. If you're not someone who's super familiar with weapons, the county has created a paper with pictures of a lot of commonly styled guns, so you're able to circle these pictures and how many they may or may not have. You want to sit there and include any information like how many, if they have protection orders with the respondent, or if you know the respondent has protection orders with other people, any kind of criminal activity that you know about, you would want to include that in your petition. Whether you're a party to that or not, you would want to include that. You want to give them a picture of their criminal background history. You definitely want to let them know about any kind of acts of domestic violence, any kind of hate crimes. You want to talk about any kind of threats. And it's irrelevant if you have contacted law enforcement about this matter or not. You know, you really just want to paint that picture. If you have contacted law enforcement about any of these things, you'll want to document that as well, any kind of case numbers. So if they have they've done any threats, any attempts to use any kind of force, stalking history, those are really great things to include to let the judge know about. And you really need to talk about how you feel and why you are in fear that they are going to hurt themselves or someone else. It's really important for the judge to understand that part. And then if there is an element in here involving any kind of drug or alcohol problem, absolutely you want to document that. So if there's any criminal information as far as any kind of DUI information, that would be, pertinent to have. We want to back up anything we can that we are writing in our petition with evidence. The judge is absolutely going to want to see anything you have. And there's a lot of great resources you can look to. If you have contacted law enforcement, it doesn't matter if it resulted in a criminal charge or not. The report itself is important, even if it was just for documentary reasons. Text messages, social media posts. Social media is a wonderful resource for evidence, I have to say. People, unfortunately, take an awful lot of photos, and we will see them posing photos with guns, and that's really a very good indicator for a judge to look at that and say, wow, this person really does have access, potentially. So social media posts are good, photos are great. Medical records, you can definitely get your own. They will have to be sealed, so that'll be something you'll have to address. Witness statements, signed and sworn. Witnesses may not have the ability to speak at your hearing due to the calendar, how busy the judge is at that time. There's a lot of cases on the docket that day. His or her time will be limited. So the best thing you can do is bring your witness, but also have their statement. So if they are not able, the judge says, I don't have time today, I'm so sorry, at least he has their written statement so they can review that, and that'll be better than nothing. So if you violate an ERPO, there's consequences for that. First and foremost, if you are filing a petition for an ERPO and you are providing any kind of false information, you can absolutely be held in for a crime on that. It would be it could be a gross misdemeanor on that. Otherwise, if you have an ERPO filed against you and you are not supposed to be having any kind of custody of weapons, and you are found to do so, you can also be held on a criminal charge for that. So these are also usually gross misdemeanors, but if you start racking up a couple of them, they eventually bump up to felony level. ERPOs and minors. I think a lot of people are very surprised to learn that an extreme risk protection order can be filed against a minor under the age of 18 as a respondent, and I think that's very surprising to many people. There's a little bit of difference. The process itself is the same. You're going to file this in juvenile court because your respondent is a minor, so that's absolutely the biggest difference. If they are under the age of 16, they are going to be appointed a guardian ad litem, and the courts can also have the record sealed for that. Parents have to be served the documents. Nobody can sit there and try to get an ERPO against your child and not notify you, so you have to be served as a parent with the documentation. If the child happens to be under DCF, then they are also served. Parents are obligated to then secure and store any of their firearms so their child is not able to gain access. And if they do not, they can also be in trouble and looking at a prosecution charge. Courts can also order a behavioral health eval if the respondent is a minor. If they're an adult, they cannot do that, but on a minor, it's a big difference if they can. So some of the red flags for people in crisis, this is not a comprehensive list, but these are just some of the ones that we do see. Any kind of a mental health concern, suicidal ideology, threats of self-harm, odd interpersonal interactions, diminished quality of thinking, recklessness, crisis calls to police, changes in hygiene and weight, that's actually an indicator, impulsivity, including abuse of drugs or alcohol, or firearm behavior, and physical aggression. So when we're talking about prior acts of DV or other violent incidents. So it's really important that we try to familiarize ourselves as much as possible with some of these red flags. And this way, you know, as a community, if we see something, we need to speak up. We really need to try to intervene on behalf of the people who are struggling in the moment. So if you recognize any of these behaviors, you know, and we don't take any action, then our opportunity to help them is missed, and that's a shame. Some frequently questions I get. I think one really important one is, does it cost anything? It's free. It's my favorite part. It's free. A lot of our protection orders, it does actually cost money to do some filing, but ERPOs is one of the few that it does not, which I think is great. Can a judge deny a petition? Absolutely. If we do not meet the burden of proof, if you have not proved that there is an imminent and real threat, then he will deny the petition. Can you renew it? Absolutely. You can renew your order at 1-year intervals. The petitioner has to file within 105 days before it expires in order to do so. Can a respondent terminate the order? They can try. They got one shot at the apple. So they can go and petition the court. They would have to prove to the court that they are no longer a danger to themselves or others. And if the judge believes that information to be true and correct, they can get their firearms back early. If not, they have to wait until the very end of the original expiration date. And can I hire a lawyer? Absolutely. You can do that if you so choose. It's not a requirement, so it's up to you. That's a personal choice. It really comes down to, you know, what you can and cannot afford to do. So don't feel like that should be a barrier, because many people have successfully been able to do it without an attorney. And if you have any other questions, my contact information is up there. Please feel free to call or, you know, shoot me an email if you have any questions or if there can be of any help. Thank you.
Thank you, Dee. We really appreciate the information. Next, we're going to call up Judy and Aaron to come up and talk about Moms Demand Action.
So my name is Erin Sengi. I am a co-lead for our local group of Moms Demand Action for Gun Sense in America. We are a nonpartisan grassroots movement of Americans fighting for public safety measures that will protect people from gun violence. We work to pass stronger gun laws and to close the loopholes that jeopardize the safety of our families. We also work with the Everytown Survivor Network to amplify the voices of survivors in our communities. And we work with business leaders and our community leaders to encourage a culture of responsible gun ownership. We know that gun violence is preventable, and we are committed to doing what it takes to keep our families safe. One of our most important tools are our education campaigns. We have 20-minute presentations that we can give to any group of adults, and there's tables back there with some information on both campaigns. The One Thing You Can Do campaign spreads awareness of how to use states' red flag laws, like Washington's extreme risk protection orders, to temporarily restrict firearm access while someone is in crisis. Red flag laws have been successfully used to reduce firearm suicide, firearm domestic violence, and to prevent mass shootings. Since 2015, our Be Smart education campaign has reached thousands of people to raise awareness that responsible gun storage can save children's lives. So SMART stands for S, secure your firearms in homes and vehicles. M, model responsible behavior. A, ask about the presence of guns where your children visit. R, recognize the role of guns in suicide. And T, tell your peers to be smart for kids. Households that lock both firearms and ammunition separately had a 78% lower risk of self-inflicted injuries among children and teens, and an 85% lower risk of unintentional injuries. We know that safe storage also prevents theft. Gun owners are 3 times more likely to have a gun stolen if they've carried in the past month. And a quarter of guns that are stolen from vehicles. So, in your glove box is not safe storage. And why is this important? In 2018, there were at least 193 unintentional shootings of children, resulting in 73 deaths, that's more than one a week, and 129 injuries. In 2019 and 18, there were 103 and 105 incidents of gunfire on school grounds, nearly double from previous years, up from between 50 and 68 each year from 2013 to 2017. So we've seen an increase. In the US, 13 million households with children contain at least one gun, and 4.6 million US children live in a home with a gun that is unlocked and loaded. In Washington state, a 2018 survey found that only 1/3 of gun owners are storing their firearms both locked and unloaded. Kids who take a week-long safety course like the NRA's Eddie Eagle program are just as likely as children with no training to approach or play with a handgun when they find one. The majority of children know where the gun in their home is stored. More than 1/3 of children reported handling the gun in their home, and 1/4 of parents were unaware that their child had handled their firearm. 90% of unintentional shooting deaths and injuries of children under 15 occur in the home. For children under 13, the majority of gun homicides occur in the home. In incidents of gunfire on school grounds, 78% of shooters under 18 obtained the guns from their home or the home of relatives or friends. So responsibly storing firearms is crucial in protecting our kids from gun violence. Sorry, touching things. So again, we offer 20-minute presentations on One Thing You Can Do and Be Smart that we can give to any group of adults, church groups, parents, grandparents groups, doctors, schools, district staff, PTAs, PTOs, and we can share the information and tools you can use to change the conversation, change the culture, and protect our kids and communities from preventable gun violence. We have tables in the back full of information that you can look up, take home. We're happy to coordinate a presentation for you or have you join our team of volunteers. And just one more, if you're interested on statistics, like those that I've shared here, they're from our presentations, but you can also go to the everytown.org, everytownresearch.org stats. It's called Everytown Stats, and they have all of the statistics gathered, really arguable data that you can look into.
And I just really want to thank the Mukilteo School District because this conversation has been going on for a while. I want to thank Tim Reeves for meeting with us earlier. And what I really appreciate about what Everytown has done is taken something that seems so just, you can't do anything. It's just so, you hear the stats, you hear the kids are dying, you see what happens when there's over 100 people that die by gun violence. Those are just numbers that sometimes don't seem comprehensible. So I really want to say thank you to the Mukilteo School District for inviting us, having this conversation, and I look forward to them sharing the news with our counselors and our administrative staff, because I think the more that we educate and we know that what's happening, we can make a difference to end gun violence. Thank you.
Thank you, Judy and Aaron. We really appreciate the information from the Mom Demand Action organization, so thank you. So with that, I want to end this by again thanking you for coming tonight. We did give a survey that Diane created to our community to see what topics regarding safety people would be interested in hearing next. And it looks like the front runner that came out was personal safety. So Cindy Steigerwald and Tim Reeves will be working on that. Hopefully we'll get a guest appearance presentation from Mr. Reeves. He's smiling at me. There's a possibility. He's got great stories. That's why I say that. But again, thank you so much for being here tonight.